Okay, and the meeting is live.
I'd like to welcome everybody to our Public Works Committee meeting. This is Tuesday, August 4th, 2020 at 2:31 p.m. We are doing our Zoom meeting still, and I would like to welcome everybody that's here today. From the Public Works meeting, we have Councilman David Banks and Councilman Vincent Palizzi. Also present, we have John Sanders, City Engineer, Wendy Walter from the Water Authority, Brian Patchett, you are from Central Site Services, Joe Girardi from Codes, Doug Estes from the Crosscutters, Hannah Darrow from what we're going to discuss. Where did I put my sheets? Here they are. And let's see, Gabe Sinacropi from the Crosscutters. We also have Mayor Slaughter, John Mackey, Councilman John Mackey, Chris Cooley, Janice Frank. My Lord, this keeps on going on. City Clerk Joe Pavlak from Finance, and I don't know who Paul Newmeyer is.
Paul Newmeyer, I'm the manager at UGI.
Okie dokie. And we have Tyler Kukowski. I take it you would be from UGI?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and we have somebody on the phone. Who is on the phone? Number is 327, and I won't go any further.
Yep, I'm John Raymond is on from UGI in Williamsport. I was unable to get in through the Zoom meeting for some reason.
Okay, and then we have Lisa, and who are you with?
It's our captioner, Bonnie.
Pardon me?
Closed captions.
That's a closed cap. Okay, I wasn't, it usually comes up and it didn't come up that way. Okay. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to flip-flop the agenda around a little bit. But the first person we're going to start with is Hannah Darrow. And Randy Allison was going to discuss this, and I don't see Randy here at all. So I guess it's up to us, Hannah.
Okay.
Welcome. I'm very happy that you would love to do this. Okay. It is your background is incredible to do and to try and to participate with the zoning hearing board is fantastic. If you'd like to tell us a little bit about your background, I'll let you discuss this.
Okay. So my name's Hannah Darrow. I moved here with my husband in, oh my goodness, it's been eight years now. So I guess 2012, shortly after I graduated from Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. I studied architecture there, and I've sort of dipped my toe into the world of architecture, and but currently my husband and I own the Sawhorse Cafe on Washington Boulevard, breakfast and lunch place. We're sort of chugging along right now. Everything's a little up in the air and sort of crazy, as everybody knows. But yeah, I'm applying to fill the vacancy on the Zoning Hearing Board Committee. And I'm really excited for the opportunity.
Well, we're really thankful for you to do this. Like I said, your credentials are impeccable from the standpoint of what we need on a zoning board. I also know from Councilwoman Liz Mealy, you make the best chocolate chip cookies. But other than that, is any other council and would you like to have any questions here at all? Dave, thanks.
First of all, Hannah, glad you're doing this. You know, we're kind of seeing a generational shift with a lot of younger people stepping up for civil service, so that's pretty awesome. So thank you. As far as the zoning hearing board goes, what would you, I kind of asked this question of everyone, what were the steps that you'd like to see the zoning hearing board taking? I mean, it's, you know, it fills a function of, you know, it doesn't have any, it has recommendation power, but it doesn't have any, it has to, you know, it has to pass things through as they stand based on the ordinances that are written.
Right.
What would you like to see, how would you like to see the zoning hearing board used, or how would you like to see it changed if, you know, to better suit the needs of the city?
I think probably the biggest thing for me is, how do I want to put this? I think it would be good if our community was a little bit more aware of what's going on. You know, my husband and I have recently found ourselves sort of involved with the hearing board outside of my hopeful appointment to that board. And I think that the process it just isn't, it's not as publicized as I think it maybe should be sometimes. You know, a lot of people don't really know quite how it works. You know, these things get posted in the paper and a lot of the time get sort of overlooked or just not seen at all. And I think that our community has a lot to gain by understanding and being a little bit more engaged in that facet, and probably, you know, more than that in our sort of local government. You know, there's a lot to learn and a lot of opportunities to sort of make change and have your say in how, you know, we progress as a city. And but if people don't know, then they can't, then they're, you know, they can't really do anything about it. So I guess that's the big thing for me is I feel like it's a great opportunity to teach people that aren't already a part of our local government about, you know, the goings on and the process of, you know, getting buildings built and making changes to ordinances or anything like that. So.
You know, education and engagement is like the two problems for, you know, local issues is getting people to know that there are issues and then
Right.
to want to engage on them. It's very difficult. So thank you for stepping up.
Thanks.
Councilman Pelisi.
Thanks, Bonnie. Hannah, thanks for being here.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Thanks for read over your resume. It looks great. Looks like you've definitely had a lot of interest in, I want to say construction, architecture,
Yeah.
pretty much development all the way around. I read over it and, you know, I think that you'd be great on the board. My wife and I love going to Sawhorse, so
Awesome.
you know, I have all the confidence in the world that if you're half as good at this as you've done with Sawhorse, I think you'll be extremely successful, and I think it'll definitely help our city further. So I'm looking forward to seeing you on there.
Hannah, we don't vote on this. We just interview. We
Right.
will see you on Thursday, but thank you very much for stepping up, okay? And we
Thank
will
you
see
so
on
much.
Thursday.
Yes,
Thank
I
you
look
very
forward
much.
to it. I'll see you then. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to switch the agenda around from the standpoint of Joe Girardi. You guys said you had an appointment at 3 o'clock, right? I can't hear you. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. You're muted. God, we got to put this on a rewind all the time for everybody.
There we go. I got it.
Yeah.
No, I do not. I got out of that meeting, so I'm good. I can stay right where I'm at on the agenda.
Okay, fantastic. Great. Happy to hear that. Okay, next thing on the agenda, let's see. Let's do the ordinance creating, number 3, the ordinance creating Accessibility Advisory Commission of the City of Williamsport and authorizing said Accessibility Advisory Common to develop a recommended plan for the City of Williamsport's accessibility compliance efforts and outreach. This will be under John Mackey.
Thanks, Bonnie. How's everybody today?
We're doing fantastic.
I think it's important to note that this isn't my ordinance. I just volunteered to get the ball rolling here. I think this is an idea that has a great deal of support, not only with this council, but also the administration. The Accessibility Commission will serve as a core resource to promote equal rights for people with disabilities who live in, work in, and visit Williamsport. And I think it's important to delineate the city's efforts to address the needs of all people with disabilities. you all have the ordinance in front of you. The memo that I wrote is out there. I think what I'm looking for, or maybe what we need to talk about specifically, is a few things that I'd be looking for feedback on. You know, do we want a council member to be on this commission? Yes or no? Is there a need to define the commission's priorities a little bit better than they already are? And I would just point out, I've invited Brian Patchett. He's the CEO of North Central Site Services to this meeting. And I think that he could add maybe some valuable insight specifically in the area of defining the commission's priorities. So with that being said, I would just open this up for discussion to anyone that might have comments or questions, either for myself or for Mr. Patchett, for the mayor.
For me, John, one of the things I really do think it would be important to have a council representation, one person that would be selected to sit on in the meetings. What it does, it gives a perspective from the not only the city's point of view, even though the mayor would be there, it helps clarify some of the laws and regulations on our side of the fence. So, you know, that's where I think it's important. I like to see a city council representation on most of our commissions. So at least, you know, we're also informed of what's going on. So that would be my opinion on that. I'm opening it up to the floor. David, Vince. David.
Well, first of all, Councilman Mackey, did you get my correction on the, I hadn't seen an updated version of this.
Yes, I did. I got your correction and I fixed that one little part that you sent.
I would agree with Councilwoman Katz in terms of there being council representation, because this is going to have to come before council. You know, any changes that come from this will have to come before council, and then someone will have to explain it to us anyway. So I would think it's a good route to go. Other than that, I mean, you know, just for the public's benefit, we've been kicking this thing around and going back and forth on it for a while. So we've kind of refined it by this point, I think.
Vince.
Mr. Mackey, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, I think this is something that the city definitely needs moving forward, to make sure that everybody has the same equal opportunities, rights, and accessibility standards as everybody else. I did want to point out just real quick, John, on page 2 of the ordinance that's put in front of us, bullet number 2. I think maybe it's a spelling error, but it says, I'm assuming it's meant to say one voting member or consultant who has experience. Instead, it says none.
Yes, yes, I see that.
Okay. The only reason I bring that up is because right above it, the first bullet point, 5 city residents who represent constituents and or have disabilities. How would those 5 residents be selected?
Well, I mean, if you look at the ordinance, I believe 3 by city council and 2 by the administration, but let me, of course, I don't have the actual ordinance pulled up here. 1 second.
Nope, you're absolutely correct. I apologize. It's on page 4. Okay. Thank you. I have notes written down all over the place and that one slipped off my page. That's all I had, Bonnie.
Okay, Mr. Patchett, would you like to add to the conversation?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, members of the committee and members of the city council that are here. I've been involved with disability types of services for a long time. I was a college student during the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and immediately started to get involved in working with municipalities and training on that. I was working in a university setting and being a person with a visual disability, those things just kind of came together. And over the years, I've had wonderful opportunities to work with cities and state and other government entities. And I think that this is going the right direction. I think the key to success with this is what was last said, and that is to have people with disabilities, people with that kind of experience to be part of that. I think, you know, as you look at accessibility, as you look at making the city accessible to everybody, as you look at really inviting people to the city, when you were making decisions architecturally or programmatically or whatever it might be, having a group that can look at that and from personal experience be able to provide some helpful input that makes sure that we get things right as we do them the first time is really important. I think that as I've thought about this over the last few weeks and where y'all are going with this, I've certainly met folks and have people that we work with within the city who could potentially sit on such a committee and I think would provide excellent input. So I think this is, again, the right thing to do. And I'm glad that we're doing this and think that there's a lot that can be added by persons with disabilities working together with members of the city council and others. So I guess that's my input, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Patchett. Any questions from the committee? Yes, Dave.
Well, I guess my question would be, when we had originally started talking about this committee, when was it, John? Back in February, this commission, I should say. We had mentioned a number of different organizations around the city that, could participate from the public level. Because not all accessibility issues take the same form. So, Mr. Patchett, do you have any kind of suggestions as to what those organizations might be that might be, across the spectrum of accessibility issues?
Great question. When we think about disability, there's obviously a lot of things that really are things that are disabilities. And you look at the definition under the Americans with Disabilities Act. But in my case, it's a visual disability. Others, it might be hearing, speaking. It might be the way that somebody moves around using a mobility device. It might be somebody who has an intellectual disability, maybe challenges accessing information, their reading and other things. Could be types of mental illness as well. There's just a lot of different kinds of disabilities as we're familiar with, and certainly we all know a number of people who have disabilities. I think that as we look at organizations that provide those services here, there are several. There's organizations that are there. I think Hope. I think that you've got people from like STEP. There's people from education. There's us at North Central Site Services. There's the Independent Living Services, CIL. Certainly a lot of folks that have a lot of expertise out there, and several others who we can draw upon, and really looking at is good. I think to me, as good of a cross section as possible. People with different experiences, having different disabilities would be a recommendation that I would make. And that way, as we're reviewing things, we have the greatest kind of reach as possible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I would take a motion, please.
Bonnie, I would move to forward this on to the full buyout council with a positive recommendation.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will see you on Thursday night then. Thank you very much. And John, thank you very much for all the work you did in this. Next thing on the agenda is a resolution authorizing execution of an agreement between City and Williamsport Sanitary Authority. Mayor, are you here? There you are. Hi, Mayor.
Hi, Councilwoman Katz. Yeah, so before you for your consideration is an agreement, and what that would do, it would, if approved by council, the Williamsport Sanitary Authority would be the agent of the city for the implementation of the HRG contract, which we have along with LOLSOC, as most of you are, I'm sure, are familiar with the pollution reduction plan and the various aspects that go along with that. And so we're looking to work with the Williamsport Sanitary Authority here, the city, of course, already with LOLSOC, pollution reduction plan, and DEP and others. So we have Mr. Mike Miller here from the Williamsport Sanitary, WMWSA, and Ms. Wendy Walter as well. that can answer questions.
Good to see you, Mike. Haven't seen you in a long time.
Thanks. Good to be seen.
We've been working on this for a long time. Okay, this has been on, I think, since the end of last year, even if not longer than that. That we discussed where the permit goes. We do have to get this moving, and we do have to get this moving quickly. Wendy, this has been on your plate for a long time, also. I don't have any questions about this. This is, I don't know what the rest of the committee, if they have any questions. Dave or Vince? Dave.
Yeah, just one here. So the dates at the beginning of the resolution is 2017, and that's when we went into this agreement, I take it?
Yes.
So what, sorry, should I jump in?
Yes, go right ahead, Mike.
So what we're doing, we had an original MOU. We're amending that one with this one. Basically, it tells us we're going to become the agent for you guys. We're going to represent you with drafting the amended Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan. You guys are going to see me looking at Wendy to make sure whatever I'm saying is correct, because she's the real engine room behind this ship. So what we're doing is making sure we amend the agreement. We're going to be your agent for the Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan. We've already done a lot of work. John Sanders, Adam Winder have done a lot of work on it to make sure it's going along pretty well. It is out for public comment right now. And I think there will be maybe a revision depending on public comment, maybe some different projects that can be added in or changed around. We're looking at getting costs for the BMP. So there's a final number. We're looking at how much nutrients, the numbers it'll actually reduce. So we're getting that all pulled together in a plan. For timeline, my board has already approved this in concept. They've told us to go ahead with it. I understand you have a small change to it, which we don't have an issue with. I meet with my stormwater subcommittee tomorrow to discuss this. We're also taking a look at a second MOU, which would again delineate more of the transfer of the system to us. So this basically puts us in a position to understand the Chesapeake Bay Pollution Reduction Plan, which will be the BMPs to satisfy the MS4 requirements. So we know what those are going into it. Then the transfer of the system will be you moving it over to us to develop the fees, to do all that work, to implement them, as well as the practical stuff of pipes and grates and stuff in the ground, if I've articulated that properly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's sort of now two components to stormwater, one being the MS4 and one being the practical on the streets pipes. So this one, the MS4, has now become more pressing due to time constraints. This lets us be aware of the BMPs as they're developed, as they're publicly approved, and gives us position to understand how to implement them on your folks' behalf. And I'd ask Wendy to jump in if I've missed anything.
Mike, I think you did very well. There's 2 points I think I want to add. The first, the 2017 MOU is for work that we already do, I think, as Mike said, for the MS4. So there's already a great deal of work that's already being done in that respect. So this was a simple add-on for that. But I want to make sure I mention that this Chesapeake Bay plan that HRG is drafting and is currently in public comment period will have to be approved by City Council before it gets submitted on September 18th, because you do commit yourself to implementing all those BMPs in the plan during the next permit term. So I want to make sure we're really clear that we have to come back and get the plan approved.
And that plan currently is on the website, John, correct? And
yes.
Yeah, the other thing you will notice if you review the plan, and it may cause a question, I know having worked with boards before, this will get caught. A lot of the projects are in Loyalsock Township. So you're going to say, well, why are most of the projects in Loyalsock Township? It's a city permit. You guys have entered into a cooperative agreement, and the way DEP regulates or allows the installation of BMPs, they cannot be in a combined sewerage system area. So much of the city of Williamsport is a combined system, which is good because you don't have to account for that in your nutrient loading in the process. A lot of the area that's outside the combined area is Loyalsock Township. So by partnering with Loyalsock Township, you've opened up the availability of locations to install BMPs. So if that's the question, why is a lot of this work being done in Loyalsock? Why are we paying for work to be done in Loyalsock? hopefully that provides you the answer.
Mike, bring us up to date, because this has been a while since we've discussed this. What is the percentage that Loyalsock is giving us at this point?
65%, I believe. Wendy can
Okay.
nod her head at that.
Yes, yes. And that's based on actual loading, reductions
correct.
that are required, yes.
Okay. And I know from talking with Adam Winder months and months and months ago, we have already done a lot to make sure we're in compliance. We're very careful of what we do with grass clippings and things like that. There's so many minute things that people don't realize that the city does in order to maintain the credits for the MS4, to also bring down the pollution reduction plan with the pollution reduction plan. This is just such a big program all the way around. And I know we've been trying to step up with so many different things. And I know, John Sanders, you've been aware of so much with MS4.
Yeah, I just, in the last, it was one of the last things I looked at, and in a couple of weeks I grasped it and got with the folks, the Water Authority, what they needed. But yeah, I mean, I'm, as far as giving it to the Water Authority, I could care less either way. I'm kind of 50-50. It really makes no difference to me. But it's
The only thing that we have to discuss is we're paying half of this. Do we know what our payment is going to be to this company, HRG? I didn't know about HRG. Mike, Wendy, is this the company that you came in contact with at some kind of conference? Is this the same company, or am I thinking of something else?
This is a company that I've worked with for quite some time. They have a pretty strong stormwater department. That they're not the ones that we came into contact with at the conference. That was I was an attorney.
Okay.
The next agreement you're going to see is the base was created by that attorney. So the very basics of the next agreement you'll see was created by that attorney. This is a company that has some very strong stormwater MS4 department that we picked up.
But do we know what the cost factor is going to be?
I think it's split 13,000. Is it 20? I think it's $26,000 and it's split 13 even between the two, because you both have to have the plan, I believe.
$26,000 and it'll be split.
26, is it 26,000? It's 24, 26,000.
I can tell you in a second.
26,000 is 13 each.
It's either 13, either 11 for us or 13 for us off the top of my head. It's one of those two. I can confirm it here in a second. You guys can keep talking. I'll just find it.
Okay.
Real quick, if I could jump in, Mr. Miller, just for everybody else, whomever may be watching, whenever we use acronyms, I just try to clarify for people. Could you explain to people, I think everyone here knows what a BMP is, but for anybody else that might be watching, wondering what a BMP is.
Yeah, my apology. I usually try to back up and say that. So MS4 is municipal separate stormwater systems. So that's the pipes and pumps in the ground that convey away stormwater. BMP stands generally for best management practices. And what a BMP is, a company will construct, or the city or a crew will construct a, what's the word I'm looking for? Structure, yes, thank you. Structure that will collect stormwater, disperse it into the ground, prevent it from getting into the river quickly. The intent is to slow how fast the stormwater lands on our mountain, on our streets, in our community, and how quickly it gets to the river. So really, we're trying to slow the velocities down. We're trying to slow the pollutants that it takes into our streams. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Overall cost, just so we're all, City of Williamsport pays for 11,700, and this Loyalsock Township pays for 11,700. So it's split evenly between us for this new plan from HRG.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Yes, Dave.
Yeah, so I just had one about, so you said Loyalsock Township's paying 65% of this, is that?
No, they are responsible for 65% of our pollution.
Loading reduction, yep.
Okay.
So when they add up the poundages of nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediments that each community has to take out, when you add your two together, Loyalsock accounts for 65% of that. So they're going to pay 65% of the bill, I think is the simple way to say that.
Right, and just to clarify for the dumb part that needs to be said out loud, that's because they're upstream from us and water runs downhill, and that's just explaining why we're going in disagreement with everyone. So.
Any other questions?
Nope.
I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This will be passed on to a full body of council with a positive recommendation. See you guys on Thursday night. Mike, Wendy, okay?
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here today. Okay, next thing
Nice
on the
to have you.
agenda is, let me see here. Okay, resolution. We're going to go to number 5. Resolution approving the professional engineering services proposal for the scoreboard design, bidding, and limited construction consultation for the new exterior video scoreboard at historic Bowman Field, prepared by Larson Design Group. John Sanders.
Yep, that's me. Yeah, so this has been going on for a little while, this scoreboard item. We have an obligation to the crosscutters and to Senator Yaw and resolution 9036 that was passed 2 months ago to put up a scoreboard at Bowman Field. It was decided it was probably the best to use an independent third party, and Larson Design Group was chosen. So if we choose them, we'll be paying them $93,000 to design, put together the bid specifications and the construction drawings required, and to bid out this scoreboard with the HD, essentially a large TV, on their website independently, and field any questions during the bidding. And then after it's awarded to a contractor, limited shop drawing review and very limited construction consultation. On the very last sheet of this is the breakdown of the $93,000 that Larson's asking for the proposal here, of which approximately 33,000 of it is going through the specialty firm for the display of the scoreboard itself, the HD scoreboard.
Yes, Vince. You're muted. You're muted.
Thanks, Bonnie. So, Mr. Sander, you said it was the idea that to choose a third party and Larson Design Group was just chosen.
I don't know who chose. I was told by the mayor and Chris that we need to get moving on the scoreboard. So I'm
wondering how they were chosen. Were there other third party groups that were in the pool?
I do not know. I didn't have anything to do with who got chosen.
I think in our packet, there was a letter that was sent by Adam Winder. And I think Adam Winder's the one who approached the Larson Design Group, from what I'm looking at this letter that's in with the proposal. What I'd like to do is bring Gabeson Agropi and Doug Estes up to discuss this, because this is something that they've been a part of for, oh, Gabe, what is it? At least a year, year and a half.
Too long.
For a long time.
Yeah, going on 3 years.
Oh my gosh, I was going to say 2. Go ahead. I'll let you. I would like your idea on this, please.
Well, from the crosscutter standpoint, we don't think that this full proposal is necessary. We are working with a limited budget, a fixed budget that is limited, that's going to really test everybody's power to get the type of equipment and video board that we desire here at the ballpark, and not only desire, but is pretty much a requirement these days in minor league baseball. If just by way of explanation first, if we were lucky enough to have $500,000 to get our own new video board, and of course we are a private business, so it's a little different than obviously a city doing it, a municipality. But what we would do is obviously get quotes for the type of equipment and scoreboard that we wanted, pick one of those quotes, and then the scoreboard company would come in and they're kind of a one-stop shop. They engineer it, they really do all of it. And I can appreciate and understand the differences and know many of the differences between us going and getting our own scoreboard and a municipality doing it. It is certainly, there are differences, and obviously one of them is putting together a bid package and going out to bid and doing all the right things, not only under the municipality's laws, but also under the stipulations for the RCAP grant. But that said, $93,000, if it's coming out of the budget, our scoreboard budget that we've already talked about in many meetings, it's going to hamper this project a great deal. We're going to have to reevaluate our expectations on this. And I would go as far to say that if we had to pull $100,000 out of this project for engineering, that what we're going to end up with is something that we're all going to look at after it's over and say, we missed on this. It's not going to be what we had originally discussed for the last 2.5 years. So, and this is not only from the Crosscutters perspective, but we've talked with 2 scoreboard companies who also say the same thing. It's not going to reduce the bids by $93,000. It may not reduce the bids at all, but it may reduce the bids slightly. $10,000 to $15,000 was the range that they estimated that bids would be reduced by doing this. We also know that, we'll probably need somebody, need to pay some firm to put the bid package together. And we understand that, whether that's Larson Design or somebody else, whatever the case may be. But for the rest of the engineering, we don't feel that this is money well spent with this limited budget. Again, if it's coming out of the scoreboard budget.
Gabe, from what I understand, Delta is the one who has driven this grant.
Yes.
And
we were working with, is Delta still on this project, Mayor, or is Delta not on this project, or?
Yes, Delta's still working on it.
Okay.
so then Delta would be able to drive the bid and whatever with this, if needed.
We don't know that. That's mayor and administration. I don't know if Delta would do that, does do that. If it's economical for us to have them do it, we don't have an opinion on that.
Doug, would you like to add to this?
I guess we had a couple of questions going forward. Certainly that was one of them, as far as where this money is coming from. The other issue that we kind of have, and Gabe did not touch on this, is the timeline. There is a potential that our season will start in April. And based on the timeline that Larson has provided, All it says is construction completion spring of 2021. Unfortunately, that doesn't really help us as the operator, because we still need to learn how to use it and get the folks in place to, to be able to use it to its maximum capacity. So that's a concern. And I was, I know that in the Larson design documents, they are talking about demolition of the old scoreboard. Well, that may be well and good, but we may need the old scoreboard if this one isn't in workable shape by the time our season starts. So that's a huge concern. Won't drag in, other things, but the timeline has been skewed quite a bit since our meetings with administration in February and March. So, I mean, I understand COVID has some things to do with it, but that's a real concern. And just want to make sure that, folks are aware that we may need that old scoreboard while the other one is being constructed and learned how to use. So, and I understand too, we had some discussions about a maximum dollar figure based on our budget. I don't know if that's something that's included in the bid specs, but that's something that I just want to bring up. And finally, I guess, I mean, we've had bid specs done before. We know this project's been bid twice. Again, what can we use out of those previous ones? I don't know. And I'm not sure, it was the 33,000 for the bid, John? Is that the bid spec documents? Is that what Larson?
The 33,000 was built within the 93,000 is 33 going to the company who does the specs for the actual HD scoreboard, that portion of it.
So we have a third party being brought in by Larson Design. Is that accurate?
Correct, a sub consultant, yes.
Okay.
Who specializes.
I just question, do we need that? I'm asking the question. So
yeah, well, as far as Larson's capabilities, they're not in-depthly familiar with that particular thing. That's why they're looking to hire someone else to do that.
Well, in our original timeline and delineation of duties, we were to provide technical specs for the equipment by the beginning of June. We did that. And from then until the middle of July, we didn't hear anything, which again was understandable due to what's been going on in the world. But the first thing we heard all of a sudden was that Larson was involved in putting together a proposal for engineering, and it just kind of surprised us. So it just, that wasn't what we had talked about, I guess.
When I talked
back
to
up here a little bit, just to get some historical perspective on it. So was Larson the only company that put in a bid on this? Did this not go out for like an RFP, or how did this work from the administration side?
Not to my knowledge. I was told to get going with Larson, and that's where we're at.
Okay.
From what I understand, we don't need to go out for another bid at this point for the scoreboard, period. This is what I was told. And Gabe, when I talked to you in May, as you said, you had the specs mostly finished and you were all set to go, which these, the specs were, you have to get this going with the end of August, beginning of September, in order to get this accomplished for the season next year. Am I correct in this?
Well, partially. Could it be installed in the spring? Certainly it can be. Our druthers were always to have it in the fall, which is why we started this work in January, or restarted, I should say. And also the full bid specs are not, we did not provide a full bid package. We provided some specs on equipment that of what we were looking for that we think is in that price range. So don't misunderstand. We did not put together a full bid package that's ready to go out to bid or anything near that, because we don't have the expertise or know the things that need to go in that bid package, technical wise, RCAP wise, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, partially correct, but
Well, this is a catch
there's a little
22
more to
then.
it.
From the standpoint of, if you don't know what specs need to be incorporated here, thought that you were talking to scoreboard companies and they had their own engineers. And this is where you were getting some information from.
Scoreboard companies do have their own engineers, yes.
But we need to get past the process of who we're going to go with. Yes, John, you're chomping at the bit there.
Let's do one thing at a time here. So funding for the if in the event we chose Larson Design Group, funding, Derek and Joe, do we have an update on the funding? I saw some emails come through. Do we have the funding that does not take it out of the project?
The funding's not coming from the project. There's 1.25 as it was originally proposed.
So where's the funding coming from then, Joe?
Act 13, which is not eligible to be used as match.
Okay, so the $93,000, say we went with Larson Design, would not affect the cost of the scoreboard.
It would not affect the budget of 1.25 million, no. For the
Okay.
overall project, which included the clubhouses and press box expansion and other work.
So Joe, it would not change the, I don't have it in front of me here. Oh yeah, I do, right in front of me. The money that was delineated for the scoreboard of 375 on scoreboard and equipment and 100 for install.
I don't have the breakdown. I can just tell you that the original project of a RACB project was proposed at 600,000 from the RACB grant, along with a $650,000 match, and that's still what we're proposing, excluding this agreement with Larson.
Well, that answers and satisfies our question that we had been asking for a few weeks, I guess.
See, I was under the assumption that we were going to use scoreboard engineers, but we can't do that. That's just 2 steps ahead of where the game is.
Let me go down through.
We have to have the bid process going in.
Okay, so going down, so I'm hearing all these concerns. So the timeline. So in the event that it's not up by spring, there will be no issue with us having the existing scoreboard functioning in right center field, and the other one, if it's not up, if it's not ready, there will be no issue there. I can guarantee you that. We chose Larson for a couple, well, and then I don't know why we chose Larson, but I tell you what they can do. There's some foundation design parameters that within this scope, we need to design the foundation for bearing, for flexural resistance, for torsion, a whole bunch of things. So within that, there will be 2 field borings done in the field. And then with that, there'll be a formal geotechnical report signed and sealed by a professional engineer that will develop the design parameters for the concrete shaft foundations. So these are things that we know Larson is capable of doing and they can do in-house, where in the past it was put on the construction, which isn't wrong or a bad thing to do, but it's easier if we can have Larson take care of it. In regards to the bidding specs, I have the ones that you gave us, Gabe. I have them right over there. Larson has them as well, so they're well aware of what you guys are looking for. They have worked with this company, Henderson Engineers, and they have them as well. So just letting you know.
Great.
And as far as if we choose this setup with Larson, the bidding, so Larson pulls together contract documents, drawings, signed and sealed drawings, bid specifications, and all the contract documents, and lists them on their website for, let's just say, a month. And then the contractors from all over the US will be notified that there's a project on their website. We won't the city won't have our hands in it. The Crosscutters won't have their hands in it. It'll be completely independent, third party. And any questions that are asked during bidding, which happens a lot, every single contractor that has the plans will be able to see them. Either myself or you or anyone from the Crosscutters will be able to answer the questions. And that's the way, probably the best way to bid it out. So there's no, with an independent third party. So there's no, you're not giving information to the bidders and I'm not giving information to bidders. It's a firm that does this all the time. I've used that website. I've put out projects on that website. It's worked phenomenal. So.
I think the Crosscutters were more concerned of where the $93,000 was coming from. They
Sure,
didn't
no, I
know
just wanted to kind of explain
their
everything.
scoreboard. I think that's what the bottom line was here.
Sure.
Am I correct, Gabe, Doug?
Correct.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
You don't, you just want to see this project go forward as quickly as possible. I do have another question that people are going to ask. This kind of money is going to be spent on a scoreboard. Do we know? We still don't know where the Crosscutters are going to be next year, do we?
Well, in Williamsport, but I think your
It's the
question
elephant in
is
the
more,
room, Gabe. You know that.
is more what we will be. And there is a lot of things that are in flux right now, and not frankly being worked on right now because of what's going on in the world and in Major League Baseball. Very quickly, the contract between minor league baseball and Major League Baseball expires September 30th. Major League Baseball has indicated they want to do something different as far as how the minor leagues are structured. There's currently 160 teams, one of which is us. They want to reduce that to on or about 120 teams. So there's 40 teams that would be cut from what we normally consider minor league baseball. There is a possibility that we are one of those teams. Major League Baseball has assured all of the cities that would lose this, that they will have a viable alternative option for their minor league team. They have not delineated that yet. We have very little info about that yet, but our owners have said already that they are committed to taking whatever that option is. So I think barring some catastrophe, we're here. We just don't know what we are. We don't know if we're playing 38 home games, which we currently do, 45, 50, or 70. No clue. So we sit and wait. So there is certainly a state of flux. But when you talk about, whether, let's just, for the sake of argument, say things really, blow up somehow, remember that this was a grant, that putting in the scoreboard helps get that grant money, the match of a project that's already been done, which is the clubhouse, etc. So I think it probably behooves the city to make that happen one way or another.
Well, I think our lobbyists are getting a little frustrated because Senator Yaw, every time he sees them, wants to know if the scoreboard is going up and when. So because he's the one who really got us the grant, and which we appreciate tremendously. To go back about where we stand with the Crosscutters, the thing that kind of worries me is I'm happy to hear we will have ball players, but there might not be an affiliation, right?
We don't know. We don't know.
No idea.
If we're in that tier one, they're kind of calling it, where it's kind of as is. We would have an affiliation. It very well would not be with the Phillies. It would be with somebody else. But Otherwise, if we're in that tier 2, we don't know what that is. It could be, we could have multiple affiliations, possibly, or no affiliations. And we just have an affiliation overall with Major League Baseball. But the players are semi-independent, and they could be plucked by major league organizations, during the season, after the season, or whatnot.
One other quick question, is MLB still taking care of the field?
Yes, they are taking care of the field 100%.
So that's a good sign right there.
Well, we
Yeah,
know,
well, they're going to keep taking care of it for if for nothing else, the classic. So, they're committed to that, no matter what. So, yeah, that's still going full bore. If they needed to play a game out there today, it's in game shape, ready to roll.
Do you think the Classic will come this year? Or no?
No, it's canceled for this year.
It is definitely canceled. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, but it's a good possibility for next year. Okay, Vince, you have a
it
question?
is happening next year, is my understanding.
Good, fantastic.
And they have options for 22 and 23. And the administration could probably speak to that further. That's my understanding.
Fantastic. Yes,
Thanks, Marty.
ma'am. Okay, Vince, go ahead.
Sorry, if the mayor had something to say, by all means, go right ahead.
I was just going to say that's correct. Our solicitors have been in contact with MLB solicitors to work on that.
Great.
I actually have a couple questions that I jotted down in the midst of all of the conversation that we've had so far. First question, I think Mr. Pavlak may be the one most capable of answering this for me. The Act 13 money. Can you explain to everybody here and those that would be watching this or listening to this, what is the Act 13 money? You're on mute, Joe.
Sorry, it's revenue received based on gas wells in our area. Currently this year, I think we're set for a little under 450,000. What I'm proposing is similar to what we did with the Memorial Park Playground last year, and pulling excess funds from prior year projects that remain unspent.
Okay. So that would be pretty much the driver of what's funding this. Is that what am I
This
understanding?
component would be fully funded through that those prior year excess funds.
Okay, thank you. My next question for Mr. Sinacropi. When you spoke earlier, you said that you looked at this study that Lorson Design Group proposed to spend $93,000 for this, for the engineering, and it might only end up saving $10,000. Am I correct in that? That we'd be looking to spend potentially 93 grand only to save 10?
Yeah, but there would also be, as I mentioned, the somebody to put together all the bid specs, et cetera, which would also cost some money. Because, the cutters obviously wouldn't be able to put that whole bid package together. And I'm not sure anybody from the city was, capable of doing that for this project.
Okay, thank you.
I can touch on that. If in the event we wanted to do this in-house in the city, it would take an extensive amount of time between myself, probably Chris Cooley, to pull the package together to get what we need here. Weeks, maybe a month solid, just working on. I mean, that's Chris and I were kind of talking about that a little bit. If we did it,
Really, that $93,000 we're paying for is we're paying for the ease of Lorson Design Group putting it all together for us.
Correct.
That's a portion of the 93, pretty much.
Full service, yes. And just to give you peace of mind, give you additional peace of mind, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Larson designed the second Little League World Series stadium, not Lomini, but the newer one. I don't know how many years ago that was, but when they added that one, was that 15 years ago, 20 years ago? I don't know. The newer one? where they
It was
play the
about 15
international.
years ago.
Is that when it was, Bonnie? Yeah. So for peace of mind, yeah.
Okay. And then just the third question I had is, so my understanding is that the city approached Lawson Design Group and asked them to put together a bid for us. Is my understanding correct on that? And if so, why didn't we go through an RFP process like we're going through with everything else, to give every firm out there the equal opportunity to put together a bid for the city?
It was professional services, and given the time constraints that have already been discussed, we had a relationship with Larson Design. We knew they were capable of doing the work, so we decided to move forward with them.
Okay. So for the sake of pre-existing relationship and then for the timeliness of this.
Yeah, we knew that they were capable of doing the work professionally.
Okay.
Dave, any questions from you?
I mean, I'm not thrilled that we weren't able to get multiple bids on this, but I think given the time constraints, we're gonna have to kind of hold our nose on this one. It's not great, but we need to get the scoreboard in. We need to get, access to that grant money, get it done.
And I believe at one of the previous council meetings, it may have been Councilman Yoder, brought up to make sure we had the correct people working on this. And so that we've already had 2 attempts at this prior, which has been discussed here. Of course, some of us were not in the seats that we are in currently, so I can't speak to that. But I did assure, when I was speaking with Senator Yaw, that we would make every attempt possible to do it correctly this 3rd time so that it gets done and we don't have a 3rd attempt that does not go as planned. So we felt comfortable in speaking with John Sander of doing it this way. It gives a complete independent person. As John said, we don't have the city or the crosscutters hands on this. And as we're going through the bid process and everything else, it's 100% above board. Everybody is aware if there's any changes or anything that we can move forward in the correct manner. And as John said, it would be a full service from Larson that's able to do this, and there would be no finger pointing, so to speak.
Yeah, I wasn't saying hold our nose on Larson. Larson has every capability to do it. It's just not having an RFP out for it. That was the big. But it happened the way it happened. We can't forever spill milk on this one. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, I wouldn't even be dealing with this. I mean, it could have been done 3 years ago. But I mean, we're here left dealing with it, and so we're going to deal with it, and we're moving forward in a way that we feel is appropriate now to get this done appropriately.
Yeah. No, and thank you, John Sander, for stepping up and handling it. It's not. None of these comments are directed at individuals. It's just a situation.
Oh, it's no problem. I thank Chris Kaiser from Larson for pulling together this great proposal. He couldn't be here today. He's out of town, but he did a great job pulling this proposal together and working with that specialty firm that's going to be doing the display and the electronics to the press box area.
Chris is great. He's a great asset to the city of Williamsport.
Yeah.
We have several other council people here. Any questions from John, Adam, or Randy?
It's Randy. I don't have a question. I'm glad things have cleared up here. It was just some misunderstanding of the funding flow. So things are still up in the air, obviously, because everything's up in the air due to the virus and the financial aspects of that. But we just have to go ahead with the best information we have at the moment. And I think we're going to be able to do that. So I want to thank everybody for working through this in the administration and with the crosscutters.
John, Adam, anything that you would like to add? Okay, with this, Doug and Gabe, I want to thank you very much. I think we all feel better now. I'm more comfortable with where we stand. And John Sanders, I hope this can get moving really quickly at this point. Okay, after it goes through council on Thursday. I need a motion.
I'm sorry, I have one more question before you go to the motion. John,
Sure.
Larson Design also doing quote unquote construction management?
No,
They are not.
no, it's only thing on the construction end would be reviews of shop drawings that come from manufacturers. During construction, it's going to be it could have to be a combination of city folks and cross-cutter folks there. So no, this does
Fair
not
enough.
include.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Gabe, anything from you?
No, Bonnie, I would make a motion to move this to the full body of council with a positive recommendation.
Vince?
Yeah, I'm just about to second that, but it sounded like somebody was trying to say something.
Gabe, did you have anything to say?
Yeah, just one final thing. I mean, with the information that we know now, and the crosscutters certainly stand, behind the proposal. We did not have that information, so we thank the mayor and the administration for those efforts, and we're very pleased with that.
I think we all are at this point. Vince?
I officially second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll pass this on to the full body of council with a positive recommendation. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next thing on the agenda is a discussion with UGI, pre-construction on Fifth Avenue and Rural Avenue. Is Dave Columbine, is he here?
He's here.
Oh, there he is. Dave, how are you doing?
Good. Bonnie, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for being patient with us.
The reason why UGI discussion, everybody can hear me, correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
The reason why we want to place this on the agenda for today is, I'm going to say it's subsequent to a complex meeting that was held with utilities, myself, that was brought on initially from UGI and Kylie Construction as their subcontractor for natural gas main replacement, which is part of their ongoing removal and retirement of cast iron in the city. July 24th, there was a meeting out at the site for what is called the Hawthorne Avenue project, which includes parts of Northwest Valmont Drive, Hawthorne Avenue, Valmont Drive, parts of Hollywood, it's considered Hollywood Drive up there, Rural Avenue, Fifth Avenue. There's a section on Louisa Street. I don't know if John was able to forward any drawings or of the street areas. We had a brief discussion on that. John had mentioned he was going to try to send that out, but I'm just giving you an idea on those streets that are involved. As part of this construction project and the retirement, there is a section here that came up as questionable. That area is known as the Rural Avenue, from Fifth Avenue headed west beyond 6th Avenue to a point that's a dead end as it goes around the curve up there. Part of this area, Rural Avenue from 5th Avenue west, from the center line north is considered Loyalsock Township. From the center line south is the city of Williamsport. This area was just recently paved, milled and paved by Big Rock, approximately about June the 8th. It was milled and repaved. And of course, we had the meeting on 7/24 to discuss the project, and it was at that point that I had said to the members who had attended this on-site meeting, complex meeting, that it needs to go to Public Works. This area was just paved early June, and obviously this type of construction is going to affect tree line area. After discussions with UGI, because of it being new pave at that point, they had mentioned possibly trying to get into the soil area between the curb and the sidewalk and the tree line. And I believe because of the size piping that's going to be involved there, that they're probably going to consider whole hogging or boring effect, which would require multiple excavations in that tree line area, in that soil area between the curb and the sidewalk. Some people there are some small trees in that area. There's also some concrete steps that lead up from the curbing up to the sidewalk, which look to me like they would try to bore or whole hog under that concrete steps that lead up to that sidewalk at one of the properties. If this is something that would be approved and moving on to city council for approval, if so, then I think what we would need to do is we'd have to have some protection in the event that there's heavy equipment brought out in that area. We'd have to have some protection for large equipment, outriggers, support systems that are in place on backhoes and equipment for stabilizing. And I think we need to protect what has just recently been paved with plywood under these outriggers to make sure we're not getting damage done to what was just recently repaved in early June. And that's what we have is a condition here of the area's been repaved, and UGI has to, per PUC, they have to retire their cast iron main system. Plus there's service work to the north side into Loyalsock Township, which will mean that there are some cuts that, from what I see, from where the water main is located, which is north of center, those cuts would actually be technically in Loyalsock Township, but it will involve the disturbance of new pave. So John Raymond, UGI, was going to meet with Loyalsock Township to discuss that because that's their area, it's their township.
Dave, how did this come about when I thought we all were on the same page of what streets were being done between the utilities and the city? How did this get messed up?
Well, the most I can tell you is I looked at the listing from last November that I received of what was on the city listing of what was going to be milled and repaved. Joe Girardi sent it to me, which I believe is probably forwarded to him, which I'm sure it was probably forwarded to him from Adam Winder, Streets and Parks. So that listing was put together through Adam Winder and some other personnel and sent to Joe, and Joe sent it to me. I did a look at that listing that was forwarded late last year. I think it was in September, October, might have been earlier for this year. And I did not see that area on the listing. It is possible it came out from Loyalsock Township. If it did, I'm not aware of it.
Okay, the other question I have, you're saying Rural Avenue and Fifth Avenue, isn't there bricks involved there?
Rural Avenue west of Fifth Avenue is Amosite.
Okay, all right,
Fresh Amosite.
okay.
Yeah, no brick. The brick starts from about Fifth Avenue headed east. So that area is going to be,
okay,
as you say, that area is brick. And I know there have been some discussions within UGI of trying to limit disturbance to the brick area. Also,
Yeah.
Fifth Avenue. Fifth Avenue from rural headed south, of course, is brick too.
John Raymond, do you have something to say?
Yep. Yeah, I appreciate Dave. Appreciate you having us today to discuss this issue. Certainly, from my standpoint, I know there's been several changes in the city's engineer department. The previous engineer, before John Sander came aboard, we did talk about the three 2020 projects, which would be Woodmont, Campbell Phase 2, and Hawthorne. Now, when I met with him in the fall, we did not have complete full-blown engineering plans. However, what I did is I took maps and highlighted the area that we would be working in. At that time when we met, there was not any discussions that there was an issue with what was pending pave. Now, I got to be quite honest with you, the issue with 50% Loyalsock, 50% Williamsport, that kind of even caught me off guard. I was not aware that Loyalsock had right away within Rural Avenue. So that kind of, meeting with them and meeting with the city is something that we didn't anticipate. But I'll take that on. But we did do our due diligence to roll these projects out to the city engineer. And I don't know if he shared those with Adam or not, but he definitely had overlays of the projects, highlighted overlays with where our 2020 work was. So I'm not quite sure how that got missed.
John Sanders, do you have any?
Was that with me or was that with Benner? You say was shared with? You were saying it was shared with Benner, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
No, this is the first I've ever heard of any of this. I didn't even know this was on the agenda. I have no idea. I'm still looking forward on a map here, actually.
Yeah. So certainly, we've met in the past in regards to these things, and I put safeguards in place where I'm discussing a year's construction with the Williamsport City ahead of time. Like I'll do 2021's coming close. John, me and you will definitely get together on that.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason, so we don't overlap or certainly have any issues with paving. That's my main concern there, but I'm not quite sure how this happened. Now, to speak a little bit in regards to the area we're talking about between 5th and 6th Avenue, we've made some changes to the type of construction like Dave talked about. Doing direct bury in the tree lawn, as certainly the project was originally engineered to cut in the street area. But we're certainly going to do everything in our power to mitigate any degradation to the paved area, seeing that it is freshly paved. But at the end of the day, being that it's freshly paved, I mean, certainly it's, whatever the city requires the restoration to be in Loyalsock on their end, we'll certainly have to meet those requirements. It's just unfortunate that we had this situation.
Where just real quick, because I didn't know about it until like literally right now, and I had a phone call in between. Where exactly is this stretch from again? Just from?
It'll be on Rural Avenue from 5th Avenue, headed west to the dead end. I guess it's not 6th Avenue; it's a dead end area.
Gotcha.
What was discussed with the tree problem? Why is there a problem with the trees? Did I understand that right, Dave?
There are some trees.
Yeah, there is.
There's some trees in the tree line, but they're not fully mature. But there are some trees in that area.
Right. One of the things that we are adamant about, if any trees are destroyed, you're going to have to replace them.
Yeah, that's correct. And the direct bury main that we're talking about is 2-inch, so it's smaller diameter. So my hope would be that we can certainly avoid killing any trees. That would be my hope. As far as the concrete, Dave said we would use a pneumatic air tool underneath that area to bore under it. So, we certainly don't want to take any concrete out. And the brick streets that are involved in the project, we've changed our digging method there. We're probably going to be going in the sidewalk and staying out of the brick. So we've looked at this project's kind of, it's a very large project. It's about a $3.5 million project, large cast iron project. We've kind of looked at this and tried to see where we can find areas where we minimize restoration.
What's the time frame for this job starting?
It's supposed to start next week. We just actually submitted the road closure permitting yesterday.
Okay,
So it's probably going to start sometime this week.
okay. So
all
me,
right.
so me, you and Dave should sit down and talk soon, okay?
Also,
What's
are you
that?
going,
So me, you and Dave Columbine should sit down and talk soon. This is the first one.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah, yep.
the other thing that
And
I,
we
Keep
certainly
the-
have multiple areas. We'll avoid this one until the city makes their decision on, because they have to meet with Loyal Sock as well. So we're not going to be in the area that we're discussing immediately.
you're gonna have to also inform the citizens around there because the traffic patterns will be different. And Dave,
correct, yep.
you made a statement that really has me concerned about heavy equipment for some reason.
Yeah, I was, what I'm relating to there is, I want to try to protect what, on the city side, I'll speak for the city side. I want to try to protect what we've already had completed there in early June, and that is the fresh top, and being that it was milled down, we got fresh top in there. And my thought is to try to protect that. Obviously, we want to try to protect that. We want to limit any disturbance or disruption to what's currently just been put down. So my thought is here, if anything that we're going to ask for or request would be to try to protect any outrigging equipment, stabilizers from backhoes and heavy equipment that's brought in there, to try to protect that with plywood or something to try to put under those outriggers, so that we're trying to eliminate damage to fresh top, is what I'm making reference to.
Dave, Vince, questions?
Yeah, so, sorry if I jumped the gun there, Vince. I was, ironically, Osmos was out doing work behind my house when you were talking, Mr. Columbine, so I missed a little bit of it running around closing windows, trying to hear you. Is this work being done on the north or the south side of Rural Ave, this main work?
We're going to see main work in the southern side of Rural Avenue.
Okay.
But you're also going to see, and John will support this as well, you're also going to see some random cuts for services that maybe and possibly, I'm pretty sure, will need to be renewed to the north side of the street. So you're going to have activity in the tree line area between the curb and the sidewalk, but you're also going to have activity from center line north, considered to be Loyalsock Township, for random cuts for exposures. They need to expose water mains and other utilities that are in the street area when they have to renew services and install new services, that they have to, and hopefully the whole hog will work to its best so that they can get through that area, show that there's no disturbance to other utilities, and then they're over on the north side of Rural Avenue. So you'll see that.
That's correct. 811 laws state that you cannot shoot blindly. So any utilities that are in that paved street will have to be spotted ahead of us going under it. So, there's probably going to be, a certain amount of degradation on both sides, I would say.
Vince, do you have any questions?
Not really, Bonnie. I appreciate you asking. There was mention of trying to mitigate all the damage. So I'm assuming that, like you stated, the plywood being put down underneath the outriggers. I'm also assuming that any wear and possibility that it's applicable, the heavy equipment being brought in isn't going to have street feed or metal tread track on it. It's going to be rubber tire or rubber track, correct?
John?
I would say yes. We can certainly work around this. We've had, issues in the past where they've required us to put plywood down and so forth. If that's what would be the city's request, if you could put something together, with specific requirements, certainly that way we have something in writing we can provide the contractor. We can certainly work with you on that.
Well, your coming here today because this has to be done and get our permission. It's a shame that we didn't have, let's say, full disclosure of everything that was going on with the streets. It's a shame that that's come to be. We've tried to avoid this happening so many times in the past, but it has to be done. This is something, a project you've been doing throughout the city for the past several years. I don't see how we can deny this. You are going to have to let us know where we stand. John and Dave, you'll keep us informed of where we are with this, because this is a big project, as they said. It's going to impact that neighborhood. For how long do you think it'll impact the neighborhood?
We anticipate this project will probably work through end of September, early October.
Okay.
And there were actually letters sent to all the constituents that live along this project. UGI normally notifies anyone that would be along the route.
That's
So
why I
there
asked you
should
that. Yeah.
Yeah, there should have been something that went out to people. And then obviously we're not only operating the main, but we're also renewing any services along that. And that's going to require additional communication from UGI to the homeowner and scheduling with the homeowner. So we're certainly going to make sure that we give them the applicable time they need, that it works for their schedule as well as ours. So we'll be reaching out again there.
Okay.
So I have one more here, Councilwoman Katz.
Sure.
Mr. Columbine, as the ordinance stands now, I know we're going to discuss it shortly. We don't require curb to curb resurfacing for patching, correct?
We do, depending on the cuts in the street. If they're cutting X amount on each side of the street, we're going to go from curb to curb. If they're only cutting half the street, then they have to mill and overlay that half of the street. Sometimes it's in conjunction with us, and then we do a whole width from curb to curb mill and overlay. So it depends on the project.
Okay, so for this specific project, will this be entirely mitigated after the fact?
That, I believe, something's going to be, Dave could probably answer better than myself, Dave Columbine. I don't know if they're going to do a whole tire curb to curb, Dave, mill and overlay on this project.
Well, the way, I don't know how many cuts they're gonna have on the north side. If they have multiple cuts on the north side, then that would fall under whatever Loyalsock Township requires, based on number of cuts within so many feet. I'm not familiar with what Loyalsock requires. As far as Williamsport area, other than hopefully being in the tree line, I'm sure John would probably back that up to say that hopefully they wouldn't anticipate any cutting, maybe possibly on the Williamsport side, provided that everything goes well below the surface, that you're able to whole hog and get from one point to another and not have to make a cut in the Williamsport side. But that's not a guarantee. You don't know sometimes until you get out there and you start trying to whole hog, and the next thing you know, it's hit into some rock or some slate. That's a little bit of slight mountainous area over there, so you don't know where you're going to run into an obstruction. If the boring tool doesn't go all the way through, then you've got to open up and retrieve it. And if they get their cuts within so many feet, then under the city Williamsport guidelines, 4 or more within 250, then it's a mill and overlay for that lane width.
Okay, thank you for the clarification, and thank you, Mr. Raymond, for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me, and certainly in my 3.5 years, I've certainly worked at, my best to make sure that this type of situation does not happen. We certainly don't want to cut a new street any more than you want us to. So I'm sure that I've worked with John on several other things. I'll make sure in the future that we're meeting on a regular basis to discuss upcoming projects. You will be happy to know that following this project next year, we have a large project on Park Avenue, and the cast iron remediation in the city of Williamsport is going to be pretty close to finished. So that says a lot. I know we've caused customers a lot of consternation and so forth, but we had the second most casts in UGI. And this, we're going to be finishing up soon. So, that's some good news with this.
Hey, Dave, are you gonna be in the office tomorrow morning? Just curious.
Yes, I will be.
I'll stop down tomorrow morning. Thanks.
Paul and Tyler, do you have anything to add to this conversation?
No, John covered everything very well.
Okay. I think we're just going to, this is not a voting. There's no resolution ordinances here. It's a job that has to be done, and I think we all realize this. So I'm going to have to go forward with it. That's all there is to it. But please keep us informed of where we're going. Dave, you will keep us informed, and John, if there's any situation with the trees or anything else like that. Okay.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Okay, thank you for coming to us. And it's been a while since we've met with UGI, so it's good to see you guys. Sort of.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is discussion on, believe it or not, street excavations. Joe Girardi, you are up.
Okay, next time you want to leave me out at 3, Mrs. Cass, I'll take advantage of it and go. No, I'm only kidding you. I know there has been some discussion on basically what we just talked about, moratoriums on streets. Typically, if we go in and pave a street, there's a moratorium on it for a 2 or 5 year period of time where no one's allowed to get in and cut it. And then you can see every once in a while, you'll find out a week later, we're in there cutting. I mean, not us, but one of the utility companies in there cutting because they have a collapsed sewer line or a collapsed water line or something wrong with Verizon. So they go in there and make a little cut, which looks bad upon them and bad upon the city. And if you can see the piece of paper I have in front of you, I prepared this a long time ago because if you look at the second sheet, the 2 individuals are no longer here who used to be there. But I wanted to bring this in front of you. What I tried to do is, I think there should be some way to require or make the utilities go into the area where we're paving a road to make sure those lines are adequate and can serve the general public. The reason why this came up was it all came about with Basin Street. What happened on Basin Street when they redid it and put the medium in the center, they redid that roadway, and we had a little bit of a back and forth with the Sanitary Authority and Water Authority because they didn't want to take a look at the lines and make sure they're okay. They didn't want to bring in a service. And right next door on that road, you have 2 vacant parcels of ground. And I'd hated to see somebody put a building up. Now they got to cut for water, they got to cut for sewer, and they got to cut for gas, they got to cut for utilities. Now I got 4 cuts in a row that we just paved. So what I put before you is really, again, it's not in ordinance form, it's prepared to go that way, but I thought it was something we could put in, basically requiring them to do. If we know of a street project we're doing, for example, Park Avenue, we're gonna have that thing milled and overlaid probably the whole way, okay? I think on those types of projects, we should be requiring the water authority to go in there and let us know how old that line is, and is the line capable of producing enough water for the area. The fire service line, they can go on camera a sewer line very easy to find out if there's breaks in that line, if there's collapse, cracks, and so forth, so they can repair and fix them prior to us doing it. I hate to say same thing with our catch basins, our storm lines that we have in there. Because what happens is, and John, you can maybe agree or disagree with this one, John Sanders, they go through with their heavy equipment, they're vibrating that road, they're putting milling and overlaying. Next thing you know, it breaks that line. It's down below. It's weak already, but because of the extra pressure that's put upon it, it breaks. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, they're in there cutting a newly paved street. So that's what I brought before. I wanted you to take a look to see that. I think they can give us some type, and I think the wording in here, the other thing, and Bonnie, you're fully aware of this with this ordinance. We've been working on this ordinance for a long time, and I think it's come around. I think we're about 90% there. We're getting streets newly paved where before you would get cuts in the road and they would just patch them. We have the water authority now and the sanitary authority and the gas company complying with our regulations by milling and overlaying a half a width or a full width. But this will give us some idea what we can require them to, that to go through and, like I said, they videotape a line. We know the sanitary sewer line's good. We know the catch basin lines are good. The water line was installed back in 1960. It's a good line. It's not cast iron. Those kind of things. And as long as they provide us all that information, if something were to happen, it happens. They got to put a cut in the road. But if they don't provide us this information and they turn around and have to put a cut in the road, we can put some type of thing in here. Well, we're not going to allow you to patch that little cut anymore. You're going to mill the whole entire previous project, or you're going to mill and overlay from intersection to intersection. So we don't have that little cut in the middle of the street. If they do a cut in the middle of an intersection, we have them do the whole intersection. I think it makes them think twice about not looking at their lines and not providing the proper service that we need for certain areas. So that was my take on it. That's what I put out there. I'm more than happy for any comments. The mayor and I would, of course, have to go over it again and take a look at it, see what he thinks about this particular part of it. But I think it's actually the next step in the ordinance, in my opinion, in the street excavation ordinance.
Joe, we've been
If you
trying
have
to
any questions,
find,
I'm more than happy to try to answer them.
we've been trying to fine tooth this since Bill Wright brought this up.
Correct.
And that's a good many years. And each time I think we get better and better with it. And I think that is the best thing to do, is to put the pressure on the utilities to be more conscientious of what they're doing, that they're not, it's not going to create more of a problem for us in the long run.
Right.
You know, so our streets, you know, it's terrible when you see a street that's just done and then you start seeing these cuts, you know, the street looks terrible then.
Right.
And you and I both know, but the cuts, I don't care what they do, it still does not create a solid street. It really doesn't. Even though we have a 5-year moratorium on it, it doesn't make any difference. It's
Correct.
like doing half a street. You know, we just don't, you know, doing half a street creates more of a problem. Any questions from Dave or Vince?
So I spoke with Joe, 2 weeks ago at the farmer's market about this, and
That's correct.
it was a good idea then, still a good idea.
For
We
my
remember
2
like
cents-
Almond Street up until, what was it, 2 months ago? It looked like a war zone, you know, and that's multiple cuts over years. And I lived there for a period of time, and it was just hard to drive down that street. I would avoid the street.
Right.
No.
Right.
So
This
this is a good idea.
This is a good idea, but we have to make sure the utilities are on board. It's gonna cost them extra money as opposed to doing a little patch to do an entire intersection or entire city block. So we're gonna have to get their input. I mean, you know, right?
Well, it's not an input anymore, John. The utility companies for years have created situations for us, okay, where it's cost us money in the long run. And you know, they will do anything not to spend money, all right? And we've learned this over the years. It's up to us to set the rules, set the guidelines, and then they have to follow them.
Well,
Okay,
the
I
other
would
side
say-
is that incentivizing them to coordinate with the city engineer, you know.
Right.
You know, in the future, because, you know, not just one utility, but all utilities.
All of them.
And that's what I did. In this ordinance, we would have to revise some things too, because previously, you remember our engineer was the community development director. So a lot of the stuff in the ordinance says it has to be approved by the community development director. Well, that's no longer the engineer. So I think everything here needs to be revised because it should go through John as far as, you know, the different things that they're requiring to do. He's the engineer for the city. He should be the one approving it or not approving it.
Well, that also ties in with, you know, Adam Yoder's ordinance on the structure. You know, I've been revising the tree ordinance, and it's the same thing. You know, you have directors that don't exist that are in these ordinances, and we just need to update the structure of the city, you know, to either match his ordinance or update the ordinances to match the structure of the city.
Right. Right. And that's what and exactly on the tree ordinance I was going through, and there's probably 20 places where it describes somebody who no longer exists, and that it's not a position anymore. And it should
I've
be
addressed that.
the public safety director, or it should be the streets and parks. Yes. So those are the kind of things that this ordinance and that other ordinance, we need to change those things. Absolutely. Yep.
Just to throw my 2 cents in here, I agree with Joe, Dave. I agree with that. This is a good idea. If we're gonna do it, if it's gonna get cut, let's do it once. Let's make sure it's done 100%. That way you don't have to do it again.
Right.
It makes sense.
And the only other thing, Vince, I agree, in the ordinance, One of the things that, and it's always at the end of the year, I don't know how it works, is who puts it out first, what roads we're doing. Okay, I believe even though we may put out and say in 2021, these are the roads we're doing, if the water authority is going to come in and turn around and say, we're replacing the whole entire sewer line in that area, since you're already milling and overlaying the road, I kind of disagree with that. I think they should take some of the cost also that's involved in that project, because the only reason they're going into it is because we're in that roadway. And I don't know, John, but a lot of times that's the problem. You know, if they're working in a road, we're already milling and overlay, they're going to say, well, we're not paying for anything. You're going to pay for overlay because you're already going to do it. So somehow or another, we need to put something in the ordinance where that doesn't necessarily apply. Even though we're milling and overlaying the road, since you're in that road fixing it, you should do something the cost of milling and overlay.
It's also, you know, considering what Mike Miller's done, working with the city, you know, to do the exact same thing. Like, if you're going to update these systems, just get on board with the same schedule that everyone else is doing, and then we can all do it at the same time.
And the bottom line is, in the city of Williamsport, the water lines, sewer lines, and your gas lines are all old. They all need to be repaired and fixed. The question is, do we do it now in this particular thing, or do we wait a year and then go back through and cut a road out? That happened one time before we had this ordinance. Woodland Avenue, I believe it was, Bonnie, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
We did the whole road, paved it. Next year, Gas Chemical came in and did the whole side over again. That's what we try to prevent, which we've done a pretty good job since then with the ordinances. I think Rural Avenue is the first time, I think, in a while we've had an issue with a road that's being paved that they're going to be working on.
Well, the other problem, Joe, is that we were meeting with the utilities like every couple of months to make sure that we were on board with everything. And because of the virus, a lot of things have got pushed aside. And, you know, I think we've got to get back into that whole mode again to make sure that this is how, knowing that they're going to be doing Park Avenue, we've got to make sure the water authority and Verizon, any of them are in that area, so we don't come across this problem.
Right. And so if it's all right with this committee and the mayor, I'll work on revising some of these things. I'll get with John, of course, Sanders, because John has a heck of a lot of input on this, and Dave Columbine the same way. And then we'll present something to Public Works in an ordinance form, and then see what you think, and then we can present it to full body of council, providing the mayor's on board with it, which I believe he is, because I think he's looking for the same thing. Less work in the streets, better streets in the end.
Fantastic.
I mean, I think it bears saying that, you know, if these things are all systematically, you know, coordinated, there will be less of these things that come up, you know, piecemeal in the future. So it's also good for, you know, the process as a whole. No, I thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joe. I, you know, get together with John and Dave and get this to us as soon as you possibly can, and we'll take it to council then.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. And John, when you come down to see Dave tomorrow, I'll make sure I give you a copy of what I have here. You already have the ordinance, and then you can play around with it, change some things around too. We'll come up with something very good. Hopefully, this will be one of the last times we change this ordinance, because we're about there at the end of this one.
I know, but where else can we go? Like, oh my gosh.
Right.
Thank you very much, Joe.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, the only thing that's left on the agenda is any related items. Anybody have anything? Yes, Dave.
I have one for you. So I might not be able to make it to the working session tomorrow.
Okay.
On trees, but I just want to raise one thing as you review what I've written. The spotted lanternfly is steadily moving north from the Philadelphia area. It's an invasive species of fly, moth fly. I don't know what exact species it is, but it's a problem. It's coming this way. With, you know, native species, as I'm, you know, this is my thing that I'm hammering away on. The spotted lanternfly tends to land on and breed on and eat from Asian species, non-native species, but specifically Asian species of trees. So I just wanted that put out somewhere when you guys discuss it. Just bear in mind, so we can have hardier tree stock by narrowing down our tree stock to those varieties that are acclimated to this climate, but also knowing that we have this lanternfly problem that, you know, I've been working in the Philadelphia area the past few weeks, and it's terrible down there. So
Those things are huge, aren't they?
They're large, and they're like locusts. Like they're everywhere if you're out you know, if you're a surveyor and you're out in the middle of nowhere, yeah, but even in the city of Philadelphia, they're everywhere.
Hey, but what's this thing called again? I've heard of it too. What is it? The spotted what?
Spotted lanternfly. I think DCNR has a pretty good write-up on them. But they're definitely a problem. I mean, it's something that that we will probably encounter at some point, but I mean, there's heavy restrictions on any sort of commercial traffic coming from certain areas of the state back into those areas that are not invaded yet by the species. So
What are they doing about it? Do you know, Dave?
I don't know that they have any mitigation other than, you know, making sure that commercial companies moving in and out of these zones are, you know, we have to check our vehicles, for example. I check my vehicle before I leave the area, and then when I'm back out of the zone, I check my vehicle again to make sure there's no larvae or cocoons or lanternflies on the vehicle. So just bear in mind, I mean, the state's doing what it can to prevent this, but the native species is a big part of that because it's not a good habitat for the spotted lanternfly.
Okay.
One more thing to worry about, right, Bonnie?
Geez, I'm telling you. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So
As we
moved.
think about the spotted lanternfly. It sounds pretty though, Dave.
I'm not gonna be able to sleep tonight.
They are pretty.
It's like, oh, anyhow, take a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. It's been a long meeting, but I think we got a lot done.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks for your patience,
See
everybody.
you guys.
Yep.
Bye.